What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Today I want to talk about the injustices of Christianity. I know not a lot of people are going to want to hear this, but I have to speak my truth. I do want to provide a little disclaimer here that I'm not trying to bash Christianity, like there's nothing good that comes out of it. There is some good, but in my opinion, the bad outweighs the good. So that's one thing. And the other thing is I used to be a Christian. So for people to attack me or say that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I didn't actually live it, that kind of nonsense is not going to fly. Now, the theme of justice in Christianity is pretty negligent. It's not there. And we scratch our heads when we try to figure out why. Why is justice not an important theme in Christianity? When you look at Islam, you can see that's like the whole main theme of Islam. And they seem to be incompatible, like Christianity and Islam, because the themes that they emphasize seem to be incompatible. That's a whole nother topic that I'm not going to really discuss here, but I just want to say that Christianity has a lot of injustice built into it. We don't think about it a lot of times. We're not aware of it. So for instance, the first thing I want to talk about is like lack of self-worth. There's no self-worth to be found in Christianity. This is our birthright. Yet somehow or other, we've convinced ourselves and convinced other people that self-worth is not important. We have to give up our self-worth for the good of the whole, for the group. And this is a tragedy. Because without self-worth, we'll never feel healed, we'll never feel whole. We'll always have conflict, there will always be rejection, and the suffering will continue. And as long as we try not to be aware that there's a lack of self-worth in Christianity, there's going to be issues. If you look at it deeply, a lot of times Christianity is basically, what's the word I want to use? A replacement or a substitute for our lack of self-worth. It's a way to create a negative sense of self-worth. So underneath that is a judgment that we're no good. Our value is dependent on being a good Christian, following the rules. For instance, believing in Jesus, doing good works. It's one thing after another. It's always something. Our value is dependent. That's not self-worth. That's lack of self-worth. We need to be careful here. If you ask, like, the traditional Christians what gives them self-worth, a lot of them are going to answer that God made us in his image, and that's what gives them self-worth. But if you just scratch the surface a little bit, you can see and go a little deeper, that's not it. God making us in his own image is God making us in his own image. That does not equate to self-worth. Self-worth equals self-worth. Unconditional self-worth is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about wait for X, Y, Z to happen, and then we're worthy. Wait till we believe in Jesus. Wait till Jesus dies on a cross for our sins, then we'll be okay. Wait till we believe and have faith, and when we die, then we're worthy. That's not it. I'm talking about genuine, unconditional self-worth here and now. This is our birthright. This is what we were born with. Our value is unconditional. There's a big difference. And we need to actually feel this and experience this for ourselves. That's a whole nother topic, a whole nother story. But we can see how lack of self-worth is an injustice in Christianity. And this is a topic that, nobody really talks about. Sweep it under the rug. It's not important. It gets trampled on because there's other more important things, the agenda of the group. And that's the number 2 injustice of Christianity. The agenda of the group overtakes the individual agenda. The path of the soul requires a lot of, what's the word I want to use? going off into the distance by yourself, like Jesus in the mountains or in the desert. It's very lonely. We have to stand alone. There's a lot of emptiness. And as long as we're carrying these ideas in our head that we have to be a good Christian, we have to come together as a group to survive, the herd mentality, and that the group agenda is more important than the individual agenda, that's going to be an issue, because the individual gets trampled. That agenda of needing to go off in the distance by yourself, needing to do the work of extracting all of these internalized authority figures in our heads. We can't do that if there's people around us telling us what to do, telling us what's best. Oh, do this because dying for everyone else is the greatest, what's the word I want to use here? That's like the greatest thing you could do, dying for someone else. That's what, maybe that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's not a noble thing to do, but we need to see that the more noble thing to do is to do the work of spiritual awakening, and that takes individualistic agenda. Everybody has their own set of experiences. Everyone has to find out if God is real for themselves on their own. It's very difficult to do this in that type of survival herd mentality that Christianity is so embedded in. It's ingrained into Christianity that the group agenda overtakes the individual agenda, and that's a huge injustice we need to be aware of. The third injustice I want to talk about is like Jesus coming and die for our sins as a scapegoat. It's like one man will take on the sins of a whole group, and even to be labeled as a sinner and sinful and you need redemption, these are injustices, because it doesn't take into account the whole picture. It's just saying you're no good, you need to fix this, but that doesn't see your sinfulness. It doesn't take into account our original innocence. Our original innocence easily and quickly washes away any type of sinfulness. But we don't know that. So instead, they've made up this idea, okay, this one man, this is a barbaric, old, archaic idea that one man, one goat, one sheep, one sacrifice will atone for the sins of all these other people. That's an injustice towards that one sacrifice. That's not fair. Is God fair? Is God just? If he is, then you know this is not it. This is not coming from a just God. This is coming from the enemy, basically. There's injustices in Christianity that are embedded in there that people take for granted, like this is the way it's always been, it can't change. This is a religion based in brutality and suppression. And the overall effect is that the bad of Christianity outweighs the good. If we're aware, if we know about what the bad parts of it are and how it can trip us up on the path to the soul, which is basically what we need, what everyone needs to be aware of. And it's like, you can't do enough good works and you have to wait till you're dead to get to heaven. That's an injustice. Which one of those good works can we do which one of those good works is going to replace your own self-worth? That's a huge, it's destructive to humanity, living without self-worth. So Christianity overall, the traditional version of Christianity, has a lot of injustices. The first thing I think we need to do is just be aware of these injustices, because they're very unconscious. Nobody goes around thinking, oh, I don't have any self-worth. That's not a thing. Nobody talks about it. We just need to be aware and see where these injustices are, and then see how they don't serve us. They make things worse in the long run. And how that makes Christianity, how that affects us, turns it into something it's more negative overall than it's positive if you look at it closely. Sometimes Christianity is good for some people at the beginning. You don't know what to believe, so you have something to hold on to until you find out. But we can't hold on to this forever. That becomes an issue in the long run. And the second thing we can do is just kind of gain more understanding and see how this affects us, and just to understand how badly we suffer with these wounds that don't heal. We're walking around without any type of self-worth. We think this is normal, but it's not. The effects have been detrimental to humanity for a long time. You can just look in history and find out for yourself. And the third thing we can do is just say something about it. It's not doing us any good if we just walk around and we're silent. We don't stand up for what we know and understand and have experienced for ourselves. And the reason that happens is because, again, the number two injustice, the group agenda overtakes the individual. So it's more important that we have something that will serve the majority, and the minority will suffer. They're the ones who get trounced. They're the ones who get swept by the wayside. Their individual agenda doesn't matter as much as the group agenda. That's a huge travesty. Just be willing to face the consequences of this once we become aware of this and speak this into existence, because people aren't going to like it. People are going to want to turn their backs on it. People are going to attack you. They don't want to hear it. They want things to stay the same way. It's the status quo. It's hanging on. It's attachment, which is making things worse. It's more suffering. It's more rejection. But people think they're doing the best they can with what they know. So we have to be aware of that and just gain understanding of why we're doing what we think, why, like living without self-worth, why we think it's a good thing to sacrifice our own self-worth for the group of the good, for the whole of the good, versus knowing and feeling our own individualistic self-worth, and then coming from a place of genuine value instead of trying to get value and make value because we lack value. That's an issue. So we just need to gain understanding and keep growing and developing our awareness, and then sharing this with people and expressing ourselves. So in my opinion, the injustice of Christianity needs to stop. It's contagious, it's normalized, and we think the effects that it's created we think that's normal, and we think that's the way it's always going to be, but it's an injustice. Christianity has a lot of injustice we need to be aware of. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent.